What's going on, everyone, and welcome into the Deep Cut, brought to you by the Beat Sessions. I'm your host, Mitchell Weary. Happy New Year to all of you. It's the last day of 2024. I hope you all got some fun plans lined up for the evening, wherever you're at. Be safe. Have an excellent time celebrating with loved ones and friends. And we'll be back tomorrow for the first installment of the Daily Deep Cut in 2025. It's kind of a trip to think about, thinking about when this channel started back in 2020. And just the time that has passed, how much this has grown, how much this project has developed. This segment being part of that. Daily Deep Cut is a new thing, trying to be more consistent with the time frame, guys. I do apologize for that. It's just I'm not a morning person this time of year. I'll just flat out admit it. When it's cold and dark, I don't do very well. But thankfully, we're steering the ship back towards the other direction. More sunlight, more warmth. It'll all come together there. But the Daily Deep Cut, it's all about obviously focusing on a track for the day, giving you guys a song to, I don't know, kind of as a throwback. Maybe it's something that you haven't heard in a bit. Maybe it's something you've never heard at all. But hopefully you enjoy the track. And if you dig the track enough, hopefully you dive into the entire record that the song is a part of, because we like to talk about that here on the channel too. There's also a bit of a theme that carries over every week. And so the theme this week is alternative rock music from the 2000s, 2000 to 2009. A lot of good stuff. It was basically like the revival of alternative rock, I feel like. I was talking about that yesterday, coming off the 90s and where music was commercially and with everything that was inundating the radio as far as pop punk and boy bands, girl bands, all that stuff. Music was kind of in a perilous spot. It's interesting because I do enjoy all that stuff. You guys know that I love pop music, but I think this revival of independent alternative rock, just kind of like college radio in the 80s 2.0, really was a big part of, I guess, reviving people's general interest in music, giving something to people that was different, that actually created emotion and made them feel something that resonated with them. That's why I'm really excited to talk about Block Party. This is go ahead and pull the shot up of these boys. Look at those boys. They're so young in that picture. I love it. It's crazy to think that this record is 20 years old, but there's no denying the impact that this album had in 2005 when it was released. Not just being one of the, in hindsight now, one of the most influential and one of the biggest indie rock records, one of the best debuts of all time, I'd argue as well. And it's not that it just wasn't that in its time and place, but it's interesting reading some of the essays that are out there about the time and place, and I agree with it as well. Very dominated by basically just white dudes, the alternative rock and roll music scene. So to have someone like Keely Okereke come on, just not even like debut, but just the way that he came out in full force with his outfit, the intensity of his voice balanced with the vulnerability that's there and the passion that's in their music, focusing on the personal and the political, finding a way to bring that all together on this record, really just so impressive. And there's a reason that this record has stood the test of time. I believe that these guys are currently in the middle of doing a 20th anniversary celebration tour on that. So if you have a chance to see them, check them out. They are one of my favorite live acts that I've ever seen. This is a record that, these guys, very young, still discovering themselves as musicians. You have Keely Okereke and Russell Lissek on guitars, and that's certainly one of the best features of their music is the guitar play off these guys, the tone that they developed on those guitars. And a big part of that can be attributed to Paul Epworth, amongst many other things too. Working with him, he helped produce the record. Working with the likes of Florence and the Machine, Foster the People, The Rapture, amongst many others. But I really feel like he gave the band the environment, the space that they needed to put this album together and to find themselves as musicians, to find their style. You read about this record and talk about how these songs were molded through live takes, and finding Matt Tong when they were able to was a big part of the song development. Before, these guys would just mess around with their guitars, combine licks, Try to mustache hair there. Sorry about that. But when they found Matt and they had the ability to have a live drummer, have that component, a big part of it started with the beat. And that's their style. That's their sound. I think that's what differentiated them from other alternative rock acts. Keely Okereke talks about how their sound, and I feel like the alternative scene in general in London was about things coming together that weren't necessarily supposed to be together. And I think that's a beautiful statement. It's a bigger metaphor for so many other things, I would argue, in life. But it really highlights what's going on in their music. Okereke might have had a focus, a subject when he was penning each of these songs, but there's definitely this open interpretation to his lyrics, this style that you could see the moment that he's talking about, but you can also see how it's so applicable to so many other situations in life. It's that versatility, that universal quality of his writing that I absolutely love. The comparisons to Sylvia Plath, I think, are fascinating. It's a really interesting one, certainly with the confessional style of lyrics. They're talking about his vulnerability in the midst of all these intense compositions, and even the more delicate ones, songs like This Modern Love, is it still has instrumentation that is intense, that's driving, that's urgent, and I dig that. Aside from the confessional aspect, though, there's also, and it doesn't get talked about a lot, Sylvia Plath and her focus on nature and landscapes. And you look at that album cover, and it's just this bleak, snowed out wilderness, pretty much mostly white. There's little hints of black that are in there. That's my bad. I should have pulled up an image of that. But most of you probably know what the image looks like, what I'm talking about. You should check it out if you haven't seen it. But I really just like the homage there, and it feels appropriate if you study this record, if you read about it. That particular image and why it was chosen makes sense for what is going on in this record. The idea that the world in a lot of ways is a cold, icy, I don't even want to say landscape, kind of like a wasteland. It's very barren. It's the feeling that you get. And I think that's the feeling that you get with this opening track, like Eating Glass, to get to it. One of the best debut records from a band. I think this is one of the coolest album openers of all time. The intensity of this music, the frenzy nature of it, and the way that it's incredible, the way that the instrumentation comes together. The opening of this song, for like the first minute and a half, there's all these different components that just feel like they're doing their own thing. But it comes together, and I love the way that this song opens with these tremolo guitars. You get the one that's a little slower, and then the second one that comes in just immediately is rapid fire. It just picks up so much. And then the drums from Matt Tong, the intensity, the ferocity that is created from those. I mean, it's impossible not to be just immediately uplifted by this song. It's just like rug out from under you, like, holy crap, what am I listening to? So intense. And I love that when I saw them that they opened with this track. I think it's a brilliant way to start a show. Most of you who have seen them, it's probably the way that they went about that. And if that's the case, what an experience, what an exceptional moment for every one of you in your life. I mean, that's how I feel about that experience, about seeing these guys. Very cool. This song is I love, once it kind of like comes together, you get this really funky, cool bass line from Gordon Mokes, and it starts off just very minimal. It's very sparse, and then right after the first 4 lines, makes this turn, and it just gets really funky and really driving, matches that percussion, and I love that. I love the general creation of their music, focusing on the rhythm with those two guys. It's unfortunate that neither of them are with the band anymore, because they're both fantastic musicians, and I think they're a big part of what makes Like Eating Glass and the entirety of Silent Alarm just such an exceptional record. I mean, that rhythm section is so tight, and to have them, Russell and Keely Okereke, to just have that base and foundation, and to be able to lay down guitar licks and play with your style really is a fun component of their music. This song, inspired by a remake of There's a Light That Never Goes Out by the Smiths. Okereke talks about hearing that song and how it influenced the creation of this particular song. And there's definitely this edginess, this urgency. Again, I want to use that word to this song. And I think that starting it off, talking about this is a song I think a lot of people talk about it, and it sounds like an individual in an unhealthy relationship. But I think that, reading kind of the universal nature of the lyrics, there's this feeling of often being in a position in life where, like we know what needs to be done, but simultaneously it's also killing us. It's maybe like being stuck in a bad job. I honestly, I felt that this year, the weight of a mortgage and all this other stuff, and working in a job that just wasn't making me happy, wasn't even coming close to paying my bills, and which was frustrating because I was putting in a lot of hours. I would say that, I should have at least been able to have had that ability, but that's my own problem. That's my personal stuff. But I bring it up because of the way that it certainly fits into what's going on with this song. Like drinking poison, like eating glass. That line, talk about Sylvia Plath and the brutal nature of some of her writing. It really feels very inspired by her. That line though, like eating glass. Eating is something that all of us must do to survive. We all need sustenance. But obviously the imagery of eating glass, doing something to sustain us, but knowing that it's also harming us, it's also killing us. And it applies to so many different situations in life. And so that's what I love about the hook there, the chorus. It's insightful, but I mean, the music that matches it is so intense. It's so thumping. It really does border on this edgy, hard punk rock. But there are those elements of dance punk there. It's a song that finds such an amazing groove that you can't help but just kind of like cruise along with it. And again, if you've been in that venue when they play it live, the energy is just magnetic. It's unlike anything else. It's so cold in this house, open mouth swallowing us. I love that imagery, that idea of a home. And this could even, talking about the general interpretation of this song, this opening could even refer to, just an unhappy home. I keep bringing up Charles Bukowski, but I love the guy, and reading Ham on Rye, rereading it, I should say, this opening couple of lines really reminds me of, Bukowski and the abuse that he dealt with from his father, the unhappiness that he felt in that home, the idea that, walking into that door, that front door, it's like a mouth that just swallows you, and you're, committed to this hell. And it's just such an incredibly dark, but, impactful and vivid image. I really enjoy those lines. The children sent home from school will not stop crying. Again, maybe another allusion to just discontent, to, I hate to say it, but being 40 years old, I know a lot of people. It's crazy how much I hear I love my kids, but, and it's those comments that really, at 40 years of age and never having been married, never having kids, it's not something that I feel like I'm missing out on. I don't feel like there's this missing part of my life that, simply because I didn't pursue that. And I know a lot of people that are very happy. I know a lot of people that are phenomenal parents. It's a personality thing. I think that, talk about these guys and their music, society, its expectations. Keely Okereke would be the first to say, fuck it all, like, screw your expectations. I don't care. I'm going to do what I want to do and what makes me happy. And I don't think a lot of people when they're younger give that consideration. And that's what's cool about this record. These guys being as young as they were when they made it. I mean, I was 20 when this record came out. I was living in Ireland. I had left the States. I was really like on my own for the first time. And so, listening to this record over and over again while I was there, going through that period of my life, in the same way that they were. And Keely's lyrics, he writes about situations. He writes about different incidents in life that being a young person, the way they affect you. It just resonated with me so much when I first heard this record. And I will say, the first time I actually listened to it, before my buddy Matt Hoffman calls me out, I remember buying this record, and man, I must have been drunk or just something dumb, because I remember listening to the record and not being that impressed by it. And I remember giving him the CD and being like, "Hey, dude, if you want this, go ahead and take it." And the following day, he was like, "Are you sure you don't want this back?" And I was like, "You liked it that much?" He's like, "I think you need to listen to this record again." And so we smoked a joint and sat down and listened to it again. And I was like, "Wow, man, you were right. I'm glad you said something. I'm glad that, and like all the good records that are out there, sometimes it takes a few listens to wrap your head around it, for the music to sink in, get its claws into your heart, and to do its thing. And thankfully for Matt, he's a good friend of mine, that he did that. But this opening track, get back to the lyrics here, says, "It's so cold in this house." Excuse me. So the second verse, I know, and this is when the bass line comes in from Gordon, and I really like the drive and the funk that is there. And I know that you're busy. Do I know that you care? You got your finger on the pulse. You got your eyes everywhere. And it hurts all the time when you don't return my calls, and you haven't got the time to remember how it was. That's a brutal line right there. Just acknowledging that someone has basically moved on, that moment in time when you were happy, when things were special, has been completely forgotten. There's, if we're going to focus on the relationship part of the song, the interpretation, so to speak, there's a bitterness there. I definitely have some girlfriends that I still think about from time to time, exes that were and are just exceptional people, just beautiful women, very talented, career driven, they were just badass women that I did not have the gusto to keep up with them. And the thought of never thinking about them ever, the thought of completely eliminating them from my life, the impact that they had, the way that they affected me, the things that I learned from them and those relationships. There isn't the bitterness there. There is one ex that, yeah, I do feel that way. And so I think that's where the gravity, the weight of that line really comes to play. If you're going to respond in that way, it better be for good reason. It better be because, someone was really, really bad to you. And, that's the intensity, the ferocity that I get from that line. It's so cold in this house. It's so cold in this house. Just that refrain, just the repetition of that message, driving that feeling home. And it's almost, while you're listening to the song, it's almost like you can feel the chill run down your back. I can't eat. I can't sleep. I can't sleep. I can't dream. I love that. It's so well done. Laconic. That's poetry right there. On aversion to light. Got a fear of the ocean. And then he goes into the chorus, like drinking poison, like eating glass, refrain there. And then goes to the repeat, it's so cold in this house. It's so cold in this house. And then he says, it's so cold in this bed. So another allusion there to the more, I guess, romantic relationship side interpretation of this song there. You can certainly read into that line with that. But I love the way that this track ends. We've got crosses on our eyes, been walking into the walls again. We've got crosses on our eyes, been walking into the furniture. We've got crosses on our eyes, for richer, to poor, to better, for worse. We've got crosses on our eyes. We've been walking into the furniture. It's an allusion to, if you've seen like old cartoons, when the characters die, they'll have X's over their eyes. It's kind of this old school aesthetic that he's bringing to light there. And I love that. Just one of the many fine qualities of his writing. You can tell that Keely Okereke is a very studied individual, that, aside from Sylvia Plath, William Butler Yeats is another poet that might come to mind. as far as that confessional, personal style. Songwriter like Tom York, I could see where Keely Okereke is very much influenced by Radiohead, by Tom, and the time and place. The release of this record in 2005, it comes off, 4 years off the release of Kid A, and Amnesiac right there in that pocket too. Just a band doing incredible things, and I love that about this record. You could tell that these guys set out not just to write music, but to do something that hadn't been done by any other band before. And I think that that's what makes this record so exceptional and so powerful, especially this opening track. And it's just, again, it's the combination of those guitars to open. It's Matt's drumming and the way that, the volume, the drums are a little louder on this particular opening track than they are on most of the songs. And again, it brings that intensity. It puts you right there in that moment where they want you for the remainder of this record. And yeah, I cannot say enough positive things about this track, about the musicianship, the intensity, the fast-paced style, the number of influences that are going into this track, and the way that it opens up what you can expect for the rest of the record. So with that being said, Like Eating Glass is your daily deep cut. I hope you guys get some time to check this song out. If you get a chance to check out Silent Alarm in its entirety, do it. Listen to this record if you're not familiar with it. It is one of a kind, a true gem. I'd argue this is, if I was going to put a top 50 list together of the best albums this century, I'm almost positive that this record would make it under that top 50. This album is that good, and it's made even better by this opener. So enjoy the song, you guys. Enjoy the rest of your day. Take care, and I will see you tomorrow for the first year of 2025. Take it easy.